The views and opinions expressed on Deliberately Linked are entirely those of the host, who are completely responsible for all show content. These views and opinions are not intended to diagnose, treat, or cure in any way any kind of condition, or to promote any specific lifestyle, belief, religion, political affiliation, or personal practice. Nor is the information presented deemed to be accurate or verifiable.
What is up, Deliberately Linked viewers? Lace them up and lock it in, because on today's show, how you choose to lead is how others will choose to follow.
I think sometimes we probably confuse ourselves in thinking that we depict that part.
Right.
Like, in a sense of it's a forced thing, where in turn, I guess you can. I guess you can force people to follow. I mean, hell.
Mistakenly.
Horrible leaders have done it in the past. Heck, Hitler killed you if you didn't follow him.
True.
I mean, that's
arguably actually one of the greatest leaders, but at a horrible
well, I think
rate.
it's on how you say it. I mean, I don't know if I can call him a greatest. He had quite the following. I think it was more of a following out of fear. I don't want to die.
Right.
So I mean, I guess there is forced following, but I think what we want to talk about today is really how do you get people to follow? Really just from your example set, not so much being coerced, not so much being ordered. It's really being able to draw the best out of people and inspiring them, really without words. I think would be the best way I look at it. I think that's kind of how we're going to touch on today. Yeah. I think we're coming to this pinnacle in society, and constantly we're talking about leadership. And I know I grew up with the philosophy of attitude, reflects leadership. I mean, it was constantly preached to us. And I think about that, and I think we were thinking about that when we came up with this topic. And it's like I ultimately want people to be equipped to be the best leaders they can be. And I think what we're going to talk about really is viewed as a weakness, where in this turn, I think you and I will both view it as a strength.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, obviously, Mark, before we get rocking and rolling with this, I think there's one thing that comes to my mind. And I'm going to ask you, what is one thing that comes to your mind when you hear the word convenience?
Easy.
And that is?
Visionary Meals.
I love it, bro. Okay, I was putting you on the spot. I wanted to hear what came to your mind, because I knew what came to my mind.
No, it is.
That's it, bro. That's it. So Visionary Meals, guys, obviously our sponsor for today.
That was not, by the way, people, that was not rehearsed. I mean,
not at all.
He just gave me a look, and I was like, well, easy. And I was like, he's got to be talking about Visionary Meals, but I didn't want to make it that simple.
That is, bro. That
was way too obvious.
Visionary Meals, guys, a convenient service here for you. And they are Deliberately Linked sponsor for today, and we are very thankful for that opportunity, guys. Visionary Meals is a healthy meal prep company based out of Ohio. Again, for those individuals that keep taking tabs and wondering what's coming next from that, especially our outside listeners of our Ohio region, shipping is coming. Our goal is 2020, but we are perfecting it right now, and we just want to make sure it's perfect before this product gets in your hand, because we don't want you to be disappointed, and we want you to understand the perfection that so many individuals are enjoying at this time.
I think it's a great lesson for all of our entrepreneurs to understand. And honestly, I mean, Josh is in a position where he really, really desires this transition.
Yeah.
But sometimes you do got to slow things down a little bit, because it could be, and this is off topic, it could really be devastating business model to run something out there and it backfire. And you could seriously lose some customers. And once you get a bad reputation, it's hard to change that.
Is.
Most people do not, after having a bad experience, do not go back again.
Correct.
Whether it's 5, 10, 15 years. I mean, they're just done.
A true first impression is not necessarily based off a certain marketing material that you saw. It's truly based off when you get the product in your hand, and that's the most important
impression. That's what I'm saying.
impression.
It's a great example for some entrepreneurs. Sometimes you just got to slow your roll a little bit, make sure it's right.
Yeah.
Because this is a big deal. And I mean, we see it all over. We see the commercial all the time, the competitors to Visionary Meals. And, it's funny, they're serving in such a mass. It's less product care is what I've noticed.
Yeah, I've heard.
And they almost don't care if they lose a few here and there, because they're selling so much. Yeah. They don't mind.
Yeah.
That's really not what Visionary Meals is about. It's literally 100% satisfaction is the goal.
Quality over quantity, essentially.
Yeah.
And that's the most important thing. So if you're an individual, guys, stop making the excuses of, oh, man, my diet sucks. Resources are out there, guys. They're convenient, healthy, affordable, ready-to-eat meals,
And if
guys.
your diet sucks, get rid of your kids, because then you probably have healthier foods in your house.
That's true. That's supposedly the rumor. So visionarymeals.com. Again, thank you, Visionary Meals, for being the sponsor for today.
It is not a rumor. There'd be no Oreos in my house if it weren't for you and my children.
I don't know. I got Oreos, bro. I ain't got kids.
I said you and my children.
Oh, okay. I feel you.
You have cookies for your dog.
True
Yeah.
story, true story. Okay, so leadership, guys. Speaking of entrepreneurship and Visionary Meals, even, and myself being the owner of that, Mark said it actually before we shot the show. We are all called to be leaders.
Yeah.
And whether you are an owner of a company, you play on a football team or a softball team or whatever it is, in life, we're all called to be leaders. But leadership is such a broad topic that, real quick, if we get some positive feedback from this show, Mark and I have discussed potentially bringing other avenues of leadership. But for today, we want to focus on one specific point of leadership, and that being humility.
Well, I think what I want to say to everybody is I think the greatest quality of a leader, in our opinion, this is strictly in our opinion, but from the leaders I've been around, and I've been around leaders all the way from athletics through, as a career as a firefighter, where there's many levels of different leadership. All the greatest, and these are people I put my life in their hands, all the greatest leaders that I've ever been with, have watched, have had the privilege of mentoring underneath and working for, all carried a very large mass of humility.
You're right.
And those were the guys that were the easiest to serve for, easiest to work for, easiest to sacrifice for.
For sure.
And I think it's the number one quality, in our opinion, is humility.
Yeah.
But I think, it's crazy is when we were researching this and we were going down this list, I think leadership's always a hot topic. And Josh said it, we could honestly do show after show after show on different types of leadership, different examples, different areas. I think it's because it's so important to you and I, and we never hide our faith on the show, is because ultimately mankind is still here because of the ultimate humility in leadership, and that was Jesus Christ.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, correct. And you were talking, Mark, being surrounded we've all been probably surrounded by leaders that have shown an immense amount of humility. And real quick, the definition of humility is a modest or low view of one's own importance. But I also thought of individuals in leadership places where we've seen that they haven't shown an immense amount of humility. And the difference of, psychologically thinking how you maybe view that leader, where they walk around like they're top dog and they don't have that attitude of my people come first. Yeah. And they almost walk around and often you will, if you do see this, you see this with people that have done great things, but sometimes that will get the best of them. And I leave you. I want to give you a quote here. And if I remember right, it's C.S. Lewis. It's one of the most popular quotes for humility, but it's so good and it speaks volume and truth. And humility is not thinking less of yourself; it is thinking of yourself less. And I think we've all heard that. And truly, that just quote kept coming back to me on this topic. And
when you read the definition. Read the definition of humility again.
A modest or low view of one's own importance.
Yeah, so I think people look at that and that instantly they hear weakness.
Right.
Like, oh, well, that person has a negative view. That's not what they're saying. They're just saying the opposite of thinking too highly of yourselves.
Correct, yeah.
I think of the Bible, Philippians 2:3, and this is what they say in there. Do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit. Rather, in humility, value others above yourselves. It doesn't say, rather, downgrade yourself.
Correct.
It doesn't say anything. It does say, don't be conceitful. Don't be conceited. Don't have those issues with yourself where you place yourself above or place yourself higher than others. But at no point in time does it say downgrade yourself.
Right.
It just says be willing to look and place others at that importance.
Yeah.
I think it's so important when we think about leadership. I always think of this story, and it's one thing that I guess I'm always kind of tentative about diving into on the show because most people listen to say, is this sports talk radio? No, but I mean, Josh and I naturally relate a lot of things to sports. I remember as a youth, growing up in the 90s, the Cowboys were the team. And I'm not a Cowboys fan by any stretch of the mind.
For sure. America's team.
Yeah. But I remember when Jimmy Johnson had led the Cowboys to those, 2 Super Bowls. They were on fire. You have arguably the best wide receiver, running back, and quarterback in the league. And what happens? He ends up stepping away because Jerry Jones doesn't like that Jimmy Johnson's getting all the credit. And I'm like, that is a prime example of a leader who has it all in his hands. It is your team. You own these guys. You get to have your picture taken, unlimited success, and ultimately you can't handle it that people are praising this coach
Right.
who's out there drawing up the plays, putting guys in the right spots, doing all these things, and you don't like that he's getting all that credit. Well, now you're not leading with humility. Now you're leading because you want that conceit. You want all that praise. And what happens? You get rid of them. You do win one Super Bowl with Barry Switzer, who used all of Jimmy Johnson's guy, and then boom, dude, you haven't really done anything in the playoffs for 20 years.
Right. No, it's that's such a good point. Since him.
That's what I mean. It's all been downhill from there.
On a side note, with a stacked team for the past couple of years,
Absolutely.
best running back in the league. Your offensive line is unreal.
I mean, it shows what happened. You then at one point you put yourself above the brand.
Yeah.
And I think that's where we talk about leadership here. Whether we could cover leadership no matter where you're coming from, whether it's from an entrepreneur position, whether you're a young kid right now and you're playing on a sports team, or whether you're just leading your own household. Mm-hmm. Are you placing yourself above your product?
Yeah. Well, we talk about perspective a lot on this show, Mark, and I think a lot of this topic within leadership, it all stems from your perspective of, I guess, of your position within. If you walk into your establishment, your company, your team with, hey, everyone needs to listen what I have to say because I think it's important, these guys are not going to follow it. But if you walk in every day with the mindset to serve and not direct, those you are to lead will be much more likely to follow what you need them to do.
Christ said it best, I came to serve, not be served.
Exactly.
And if we all had that mindset, obviously we'd get better product. But this is something I tell my kids all the time. My goal is to raise leaders. Mm-hmm. I tell them I don't raise sheep. That's not my goal. I don't want followers. I want leaders.
Right.
I think we all should be raising our children that way. I mean, we're all called to lead. But what I tell them is if you lead with humility, that right there, it brings you grace. Mm-hmm. And not grace from yourself, grace from those you're leading.
Right.
Because we're not perfect. Even the greatest leaders mess up.
Yeah, no doubt.
And you're going to stumble. I'll tell you how you know when people respect you as a leader is when you mess up, are they there to help lift you up?
Correct.
Because when they don't respect you as a leader and they don't respect you as a person, they walk right over top of you and keep moving.
Right. No, I mean, I think that's huge. So many leaders nowadays will walk around and because this is almost what's expected of them, that they have all the answers to everything.
Oh, yeah.
And like you said, Mark, is making a mistake. If you walk around like you have all the answers, making a mistake is going to be a lot more prevalent than if you are just completely humble in the sense like, hey, guys, I'm here. This is a new category to our development, our organization. We're all going to learn this together. And instead of walking in like, okay, this is a brand new thing, but I'm going to walk in like I invented it.
Yeah.
And when you fall short of that, they need to be able to turn to you in the sense that like, hey, boss, since you always know the answer, what should we do? Instead of, hey, boss, this isn't working, but what if we take it on this angle? And that way you don't handcuff your team, your employees, your family, handcuff them to being to using their imaginations.
Well, let me ask you this, Josh. If you're leading and everybody around you assumes you have all the answers, are they going to continue to educate themselves on this subject?
Correct.
No, they're like, why would I do that when he already knows?
Exactly.
Or she already knows?
Yeah.
Why would I do that?
Right.
No. If we can go in and say, hey, we're in this together. Mm-hmm. This is what we're trying to do. We're trying to go from point A to point B, and we're all working on this together. Everybody's going to go in with the same drive. Yeah. Now, granted, I believe that every room, even amongst leaders, there is a leader. Because ultimately, there has to be that voice.
There has to be. Yeah.
There has to be the voice. We always say it in the huddle. There's one voice in the huddle, but I got 11 leaders on the field. That's how it works. Yeah. And I just think we get so lost because we assume that as a leader, we have to be this strong, domineering type personality, when in reality, humility is a strength because humility makes you relatable. When they look at you and say, okay, none of us are perfect.
Right.
All of us make mistakes.
Oh, you're human. You're human just like I am.
And then you can be related to, and then once people can relate to you, then you can get on that same page.
Well, when you're relatable, you're approachable.
Absolutely.
Okay, there's nothing worse than a leader that's not approachable. Now, as a leader, don't get us wrong. You need to demand a certain level of respect because, like Mark said, you are called to be the voice. You are called to lead. When all else hits the fan, you need to have that respect of like, okay, this is what we need to do. But if you don't allow individuals to see your human characteristics, when there are questions, when someone messes up, they might not admit to you,
Yeah.
hey, I messed up, because they're so scared of what's going to happen. But if they see that you've made a mistake and you've made it clear amongst everyone else in the room, hey guys, I made a mistake, but this is what I did to make it right,
Yeah.
then they're more likely to come to you and say, hey, I made a mistake, but this is what I did to make it
But
right.
see, I think that's so important when you said, you have to demand this amount of respect. And you're right. I think that ultimate, that person who's at the top tier, whether you're a business owner, whether you're a mother or father, whether you're a team captain, whatever it is, but that's all in how you lead.
Correct.
I think that comes in the way in which you lead.
Yes.
We were talking about types of leaders, and in my mind, there's 3 categories. There's democratic, autocratic, and the laissez-faire. And when you break those down, respect naturally comes to one, and that's the democratic, because that person is willing to gather information from people that they've empowered, people that have an opinion, and then he makes the best choice based on that.
Right.
But everybody feels like they were heard.
Yes.
Autocratic, he goes out there and he's like a Hitler.
Yeah.
I'm going to make the rules. It is what it is, and if you don't like it, I'm going to shoot you.
Yeah.
And then you have your laissez-faire guys who they never want to be in that spot anyways. And 9 times out of 10, and no offense to anybody, but it's those people who didn't have to earn the leadership role.
Yeah.
They didn't have to earn it. So when they get up there, they assume that role just naturally takes care of itself,
Right.
and everybody's going to do what they do, and they can kind of just do what they do. Well, that's not how it works. Now you got chaos.
Yeah.
You're failing, and autocratic and laissez-faire, there's no respect that goes with those. You have fear and you have dislike.
Yeah.
Where in democratic, respect is naturally earned
For sure.
over a period of time.
For sure. So, Mark,
Yeah.
would you say democratic would that allow others to have leadership roles? Is
Absolutely.
that what
Well, I
you're
mean,
saying?
we live in a democratic
Yeah.
world. I mean,
Yeah.
well, we live in a world that's labeled democratic.
Sometimes it might not feel that way.
It doesn't always, but
Socialism gets tossed around.
it does. But I mean, ultimately, I think if the American people were to come together, I mean, we could really enforce the democratic vote. But and that's what we are. I mean, we're a democracy.
Right.
My opinion matters just as much as the next guy down the street. That's
Yeah.
how it should work.
Yeah, well, and that's kind of my point, Mark. I think it's so important. As a leader, you appoint other leaders, obviously, and
You delegate,
and you delegate that work, and I can definitely speak on that from being a small business owner and the importance of delegating, because there are areas that Visionary Meals I personally can't do as well as others that I have put in that position.
Sure.
I would like to think I'm a great marketer, but I have a marketing girl that does our email stuff. Why? Because she's really, really good
Well,
at it.
you're saying it. You delegate to strength.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
Brittany, I shout you out. You're fantastic. I know you're a listener of our show. Thank you for all the great work that you do. Tara, our chef. Tara is amazing. That's not my kitchen when I walk in there. That is Tara's kitchen. And I make that clear to her because I want to give her ownership that, hey, I might be in charge in this realm, but that doesn't mean I'm here to dictate what you should and what you shouldn't do. Obviously, there are expectations
Well, and
spelled
that's
out.
that level of humility where you understand that you're leading through an example to where she respects you because she knows your position. This is Visionary Meals. This is your passion.
Right.
But what she's done is she's taken her passion and the love of food and creating that
Yes.
and combined it to where there's this mutual respect. But yeah, there's still a tiered system.
Yeah.
So I mean, and I think a lot of people understand it's a balancing act. It's a fine line.
Very so.
And you can easily be the too humble, which puts you now into the laissez-faire.
Mm-hmm.
Respect is out the window, which makes hard conversations difficult. But when you keep that fine line, a nice healthy line where you can have a personal relationship,
Correct.
and you guys can both combine passions, there is that level of respect because you're humble enough to respect her talents.
Correct.
And yet she's humble enough to realize that you allow her talents to be shared at the forefront.
Well said.
You know what I mean? That's how it's done. I think a lot of people get lost in that because they assume, man, the minute I give them too much respect or too much affirmation, they're going to take advantage of me. That's where you need to find that balance.
Yeah, yeah. You said take advantage, or, and I think you're right, Mark. It's such a fine line, and it's something that I truly myself continue to work on. Like, how much do I make it clear to our kitchen team that, hey guys, this is your your space, and to where like they start taking shortcuts. But you brought up a great point, Mark, that I think we need to come back to, because you said it so perfectly, that you talked about shortcuts. And as soon as these individuals, I think it's so important as leaders to obviously not take shortcuts, because the individuals that you give this free realm and this free space of ownership, we'll call it, if they've seen, for example, guys, let me apply it particularly and specifically to Visionary Meals. We weigh all of our foods because everything's macro specific. Okay, if Tara, our chef, sees Josh, the owner, guys, I can grab a handful of white rice and I can get pretty darn close at what 4 ounce looks like.
Sure.
I've done it so many times, I've got it down to a money. But if I just start assuming like, I think that's 4 ounces and not weighing it, well, now I'm setting that bad example for someone that has now ownership in our kitchen to do the same thing.
Well, it becomes the do as I say, not as I do.
Exactly.
And that's where the line gets skewed.
Correct.
I mean, if we want to be great leaders, we have to understand that our example is just as important as our words.
Yeah.
I mean, that's got to be imperative.
It's everything.
If you want people to be their best, then you have to expect your best out of yourself.
There's nothing worse than a hypocritical leader.
Well, no one likes them. No one respects them.
No, because what do you mean you're telling me to do X, Y, and Z when
and that's when you actually, at that point in time, you move into this autocratic leader because you become this guy who speaks all these things, but at the end of the day, you're going to do whatever you want anyways.
Right.
No one respects that.
Yeah.
Then you just look like that shyster, shady character.
Yeah.
And I think that even goes to parents. I mean, parents, we constantly are preaching at our children. I mean, if you're not, you should be. But I mean, we're constantly preaching at our children. But just remember, our children are constantly watching our example.
Yeah.
I can preach God to my kids all day long.
Right.
If my kids don't see me following those footsteps, they're like, well, you're just fake.
Correct. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Or if they see me preaching at one place and then doing something else somewhere else,
right.
What example am I setting them?
Yeah.
And there's many times, I openly call myself out in front of my children. I am a sinner. I messed up here. That's that humility I want them to see, because I want them to have that confidence that, you know what, I'm not going to be perfect.
Yeah.
And we all should have that as leaders.
No, for sure. No, I think that, Mark, it applies obviously so much outside of business as
Absolutely.
well. Like you were saying.
Well, we think of leadership and we assume of the very traditional roles of leadership, and we seem to exclude the fact that we are all leaders in our own ways. And I don't even care if you're a 9-to-5er and you go and you sit in an office. You're leading somebody.
You're still a leader.
You're leading somebody. And let's change the word. You're mentoring somebody.
Right.
You're either mentoring them through a relationship or you're mentoring them through an example. Yeah. That is a leadership role.
Now, although I do believe we are all called to be leaders, I think it's prevalent that individuals are called to be more specific leaders per se. And
absolutely.
Kind of like you were saying, I think that's where you kind of mentally have to step outside of what a stereotypical leadership role looks like, and that's usually either applied to sports or applied to the business corporate world. And being a leader in your community, I think, is another category of that. Is being able to well, like you said, your family, I would consider that part of your community. So having those leadership qualities, it's needed everywhere we go. It's needed everywhere we go, and being able to show that humility. And Mark, you said it, and I think it's so beautiful. And I think I've picked up on it, because naturally you act like the individuals you hang out with the most, and obviously I hang out with you a ton. And one thing I've always picked up on is you being humble and showing humility in the areas that you fall short in. And you always say, I fall short in this category all the time. Well, I noticed myself saying that because too, based off your leadership to me, because it is so important to have that humility, outspokenness.
Well, I always think some of the greatest leaders are the greatest followers.
That's so, Mark, that's beautiful. And I'm so glad you said that, because I had this thought a little bit ago and I lost it. So I'm going to give you the mic back here in a second, but something we
both have ADD.
I'm fired up about this topic.
Squirrel.
It's a great topic, but something where I myself, wish I truly wish I had more of is, and you don't necessarily get this as an entrepreneur, especially in your own company, is I don't really always have a leader to lead me.
Yeah.
And we've talked about mentors and things like that, and you have to go out and seek those.
But that's not a daily thing. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I tell Ashley all the time, she'll be like, well, you're your own boss, or well, this or that. And I was just like, I wish more than anything I had a boss. I wish I had someone to just learn
keep you in check.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Hey, did you think about this?
They'll hold me accountable.
Yeah. Well, you're looking at it like you're a leader on the football field for most of your life.
Right.
But when you went to sideline, there's always a D coordinator or a linebackers coach.
Yeah. And I think there's a lot of listeners probably that maybe solely do run their own business, and not having that leadership. Guys, there are mentors that you have to put in place, but this is why this is such an important topic, and truly to take note of some of the things Mark and I are saying, because if you don't have a leader that you report to on a day-to-day basis, this can be a very challenging topic.
Well, and you can get really out of shape real quick.
It's
Your leadership skills get way out of whack real fast.
Right.
I mean, I was very fortunate. I worked with a wonderful man named David Rogenkamp. He was a captain. And in the same firehouse, we had Lieutenant Steve Kearns, and I love them both dearly, like family. And I always think of it this way. Those two guys, they never had to get on a medic. And for those of you who aren't in the fire service, most people didn't want to ride the medic. It's the busiest truck. You're going nonstop, and you're dealing with a lot of BS for the most part, especially where I worked. But these two guys would come down on the truck. Now, granted, you realize these guys got bugles on their collars. We do not. And yet they go and they take the subsidiary role, and we're the lead guy on the box that day.
Right.
I'm not telling my officer what to do. I'm not telling him, no, I don't want you doing that. I want you doing this.
Okay.
But those guys, they were able to humble themselves and say, hey, I want to come down. I still need to refresh myself, but I realize you're the expert in this box because you do this regularly.
Yeah.
I'm down here sharpening my skills. They would humble themselves and say, yeah, hey, lead me, guide me, tell me what you want. What do you expect? How do we do this now? That's how it worked.
Yeah.
And then literally 12 hours later, it'll flip, and I'm on either the engine or the ladder, and I'm the subsidiary guy, and I'm saying, hey, Cap, tell me what you want on this run.
Right.
Hey, Lou, what do you want on this run?
Yeah.
That's how it works, though. I'm telling you, some of the greatest leaders I know, and I can think of a lot of them, were also the best followers because they knew when to take a step back and say, my strengths have been here. They may have been where you were at one point in time, but right now, where I'm at, these are my strengths. So I will bow to your strength in this area at this point in time.
Yeah.
It's not a weakness
Not at all.
anywhere. What it turns into is strength
For
because
sure.
iron sharpens iron.
Correct. Yeah, no, Mark, I think first off, that's being able to, like you said, stay in your own wheelhouse.
Yeah.
Is so important, and having that capability of taking off one hat and maybe putting on another, and that's where you truly see some really good qualities of a leader. And I think it really comes down to as a leader, especially a humble leader, it's important to continually to recognize you're not the smartest one in the room, guys.
Oh,
And-
well,
and
I
if
mean, if you think you are,
you're if you think you are, you got more problems.
chances are you're making a fool of yourself.
Stop thinking you're the smartest one in
Yeah.
the room. Like, I don't care who has what kind of education. I don't care who has what kind of diploma. All right. The second that you start thinking you're the smartest one in the room is the second you start stepping in other individuals' wheelhouses when they need you to lead.
You'll like this because this makes me think of 1 Timothy 4:12. Let no one despise you for your youth. That's how it starts.
Let no one despise you for your youth. Okay.
And I think so many times there's a lot of leaders who instantly discount inexperience. And sometimes leadership does not come from experience.
Correct.
It comes from fresh new ideas.
Yeah.
It comes from a fresh set of eyes.
So-
it comes from a fresh way of thinking, and you discount it because you're like, dude, I've been doing this a lot longer. I'm way smarter than you.
Yeah.
Well, you might have the business savviness of it, but this person's coming with a brand new perspective.
Yeah.
And you should have the humility to say, let me hear you out because this might be good.
Well, before you finish that verse, Mark, and you know all about this, now I'm going to speak highly of my wife, Ashley, here, when this is a prime example of when she first worked for this local bank,
Yeah.
she was brought into one of the branches as a branch manager. And she is this 24-year-old walking into a branch of literally her oldest person was 70-some years old.
Yeah.
Right. And those individuals at first, like having this kickback of like, whoa, who's this young chick thinking she's going to like tell us what to do? And we've been doing it for this long what we have found, long story short, is that branch, it was so stale, and she brought in these new ideas and this youthfulness and this excitement, and they eventually, it took a minute, I'll be honest, but they eventually caught fire of what she was
In young
preaching.
talk, minute is a long time.
That's true. That's true.
No,
so
it
continue
does.
though, brother.
It's a new perspective, but I like how it goes on. So he says, let no one despise you for your youth. It says, but set believers an example in speech, conduct, love, faith, and purity. And I mean, I love it there because what Timothy's telling us is look, man, don't discount this. And in turn, accept it, be open to it,
Yeah.
and do it in this way.
Yeah.
Because what happens is once you empower that person, it's like a gift. It's like a gift. You just empowered those people, and you're thinking, well, if I humble myself, they're going to look lesser than me. No, they're not. They're actually going to look more of you.
Right.
Because they're like, oh, I respect you for having this outlook.
Yeah.
That's how that works.
The empowerment, Mark, of that action. And I think of Stephen, you're also a listener of our show, and I shout you out, buddy.
Great teeth.
I recently, worked closely aside of Stephen in our shipping logistics department, and I just sat him down the other day and was just telling him how thankful I am for him and all the great work he's done, and we were talking about the future plans, et cetera, et cetera. And I stopped him and I said, Stephen, like, you are such a vital aspect to this role in this company, because I told him, I was like, Stephen, you are smarter than me. He is smarter than me, and I just applauded him on being so patient and walking in every day with so much passion and drive of this business that we are creating together. And it's so important, guys, to, as the owner, I'm telling someone that, hey, you are smarter than me.
Yeah.
Like, how often does your boss walk into your cubicle and said, hey, so-and-so, you're smarter than me? Like that. It happens. I'm not saying I'm the only one, but it's so important to be able to show that humility to your
Stephen,
people.
be thankful, because he never does that with me.
That's not true. I did it like 2 weeks ago.
I think what is so important for people to understand is, and this goes back to a book. If anybody's looking for a good read, it's called Visioneering by Andy Stanley. This really goes into this wheelhouse, because I don't think Stephen would have ever envisioned this for himself.
Right.
But what he did is he found a passion.
Correct.
And the passion may not necessarily be Visionary Meals as much as the passion is the service of Visionary Meals.
Correct.
And that's where he's passionate about that.
Yeah.
And some people don't understand that.
Right.
But it also takes another unique individual who understands passion to recognize passion and then welcome it. Mm-hmm. I mean, you could easily crush him. He could have easily came to you because you guys are childhood best friends and say, hey, Stephen, no, I don't want to ruin our relationship. But what you saw was passion.
Correct.
And you're like, okay, we can function in this passion world together. Here's the line.
Yeah. Well, recognizing you win with people, Mark.
Well, you do. I mean, even the greatest leaders will tell you want to be the greatest leader, you got to surround yourself with the greatest leaders.
And it's important to have that emotional intelligence of where you fall short and having that self-awareness where your weaknesses
Well, how many of the
lie.
greatest coaches at any level in any sport that you see, if someone is considered the greatest coach, the next thing that falls under them is what they call the coaching tree. Mm-hmm. And you see all these other coaches that worked underneath them who then went on to be great coaches.
Right.
Well, yeah, because eventually, and they say, well, this person made all them. Not necessarily. He guided them, and they helped make him the best, and in turn, he helped make them their best.
Correct.
It's really a give-give.
It is.
At the end of the day, though, there's that one titled spot. This person is obviously the leader. We get that. But within the relationship, there's the empowerment of all our leaders.
Correct. If you're able to detach yourself from that entitlement,
absolutely,
it is a title, and it can be a very powerful title, and there's times to use that power, and there's times to not. But if you're able to detach yourself, that you are the boss, that you make the calls.
Yeah.
Your organization, I promise you guys, your company, if you give the individuals feeling that they have ownership into what they're doing, whether they have ownership or not, whether you can snap your fingers and they can be out the door, that's besides the point.
Yeah.
It's besides the point. Letting them feel that, hey, I matter, and hey, my opinion matters, and hey, I bring a quality to this company. I'm not just another 2 legs and 2 arms.
That's like me allowing you to be the host and me, air quote, the co-host.
Get out of here.
I don't mind. Yeah, I feel empowered.
Everyone knows Mark is the host.
No, I think it's super important for people not to attach humility and the act of being humble as a weakness. It's not a weakness. It's actually a really powerful strength.
Yeah.
And I think most people respect that about individuals. They see it. They want that.
Right. Okay.
They want to know how to be that.
Yeah.
Because most of us come from a background of drive, be the best, be the best, be the best, be the best. And we're really kind of formulated in this science lab of, confidence and conceitedness and then, really vain, this mentality. Mm-hmm. And then when we get to the top, we're like, okay, well, what do we do with that now? No one likes that person.
Right.
No, where in turn, it's like if you come up with that just humility and realize that I'm only my best when I surround myself with the best. And this goes back to what we preach all the time. Show me your friends to show you your future.
That's true.
You know what I mean? If you surround yourself that way, you in turn are going to really gain from all the side effects of those relationships.
Mm-hmm. No, and that's perfect about obviously who you surround yourself with, and with that, Mark, you brought up the word, being conceited, and it's easy. We've said it already. It's easy to walk around with a big head or puffed out chests of, oh, look what my company's doing, look what we've done,
Yeah.
and forgetting all the individuals that brought you there. And I've caught myself telling my wife, and maybe just a time of frustration when we got in a baby argument or something, and I'll get ahead of myself,
Yeah.
and I'll say things like, because I'm doing this, and because I have my plate so full, and because I'm out trying to grow this, and I stop myself every time, and I'm like, I'm wrong. It's we. And
Yeah.
in that topic, guys, the humility of being able, you ask any of our sponsors, you ask any of our team members at Visionary Meals, when I either meet with them one on one, or we have a team meeting, and they are, and I apologize, this being so much about Visionary Meals and myself, it
No,
just
it's just a good-
applies.
it's- yeah,
It
it's
applies
very-
so heavily in my life, but so many individuals will be like, Josh, when you do this, or Josh, this and that, and every single, I'll stop them mid sentence. We, because making them, again, that ownership, and taking that, I know it's, if you go to my lawyer, Josh's name is on the owner of this company, but that is not the point of this company. And
Sure.
that is the whole purpose of, when you go look on our social media page and you pull up a picture, and if I happen to be in it, naturally I'm going to be the face of the company. That's just, there's a side where you have to take ownership in a role like that. But if you go, I don't tag myself to go to my personal page, because it's not about me. Okay, I just happen to be the face. But having that know-how of when you are in a setting with your people. Okay, I don't care if it's your family. I don't care if you do construction. All right, if you, and I know it's such an old saying. It's so cheesy, but there is no I in team. You know what I mean? You eliminate that I, and you make it a we thing. People are going to get fired up to go work for what they believe in, and not get fired up to go work for you.
I even think, I mean, like I said, that's why I say this is greater than, just business, because I think of marriages.
Okay.
I mean, I think of husbands. I mean, we so much long for the respect of our wives.
Right.
But that's where I think being able to be that in-home leader with humility, you're going to garner her respect. You're going to gain all that. No different than wives. I mean, wives want to be loved and respected by their husbands. It's all part of that. Are we working for the same goal? Are we willing to admit when we're wrong? Are we willing to sometimes, and I know, like, it's like even in my life, my wife just went to college for 2.5 years. I was picking up the majority of all the load.
Yeah.
So she could focus on her. That's not something I ever held over her head.
Right.
I knew this was my time to sacrifice while she was sacrificing.
Yeah.
And
That's a good point, Mark.
I mean, it's so it even relates to those relationships of these leaders in the families, and how that works in the families. I mean, my children, they all were firsthand witness of all that.
Yeah.
They saw what that sacrifice means. I was able to humble myself and do things that I'd never done before. And I would always explain to them, what mom is doing looks like a very selfish act, but in turn, it's not. She's sacrificing right now, going back to school in her 30s to better not just herself, but the whole entire family.
Correct.
So the kids got to see that there's different ways of viewing leadership. I just think we get so tunnel visioned on what, really modern world tells us leadership is, and it's really not. I mean, it really comes down to these examples we're setting, the way in which we're leading, what type of leaders we're being, not only where are we getting our information, but how we're utilizing that information.
And that doesn't mean it's easy, though, Mark. I mean,
oh no, it's horrible. I hated it.
I remember how it was a struggle for you. I mean, you would come to me and you would just kind of vent to me, and I'm dude, let it out, bro.
Yeah.
And that's okay, though. There's nothing.
Well, no, there's
wrong
frustrations that come with any type of sacrifice.
But that truly, I remember that season of life because it wasn't too long ago, but that was a sacrifice for you.
Yeah.
But doesn't mean, just because you're the man of the house per se, just we're speaking of the males, doesn't mean, that times you are called to be the leader. But with your wife, with Heather, there are times she is also called to be the leader.
There's many times I let her take the lead.
Yeah,
I shouldn't even put it that way. There's many times she takes the lead and I follow.
Yeah. Now, I'm a little old school. I think men should definitely take control of their home.
Well, now don't get me wrong. Men, from my standpoint, we are biblically put in that position as the leader of the household.
Right.
That doesn't mean our wives aren't leaders.
Correct.
There's been many situations where my wife takes the lead and I support her. I become her supporting cast. But biblically speaking, we were placed on this earth to lead together, and men were placed in that head of the household area. And people may listen to this and say, "Well, you guys are misogynistic buttholes." No, that's not true. What I'm saying is there's different responsibilities, and I take that very seriously. No different than I know my wife takes her position as a leader in the family very seriously. It's just those are the strengths in which we're called to have. I mean, guys, it's a whole nother podcast for another day. We were designed with purposes. And I don't mean with purposes in how not only are we going to go out and affect the world, but purposes in our actual DNA makeup as men and women.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it can be a very controversial topic, especially amongst women today when they hear they have to be submissive to the man. They're like, what do you mean?
Yeah, but I'm telling you what, I'm raising 2 girls right now, and there ain't nobody that's met my daughters that would not say that I have not raised very independent leader women.
Right.
They're very strong.
Correct.
And that's what I want them to be, because the world needs strong women.
Yeah.
We don't. I tell them all the time. Nobody really ultimately respects a pushover, whether you're a boy or a girl.
Yeah.
And I wasn't going to raise my daughters to be those that bow down to the men. Wasn't going to happen.
Yeah.
And my 16-year-old, if I had to pick someone to fight out of my kids in a back alley, I'm taking the 16-year-old girl over the boys.
Right.
Because she's a wildcat.
For sure.
But she's been raised that way.
Yeah.
She's a leader.
Yeah. No, and I think Mark, there's
no
often
open containers in the studio from here on out. We almost lost our
did you
audio.
See that? We almost dropped everything. Lost my train of thought there. That was good. That was like a duo catch. That was nice. That was hot. Super hot. But anyways, guys, okay, real quick, just kind of as we kind of come to a conclusion of this shows before our Would You Rathers, I think a common angle to kind of look at this from is like, yeah, that's a lot of great stuff, but how do I apply this? And I don't think there's one answer how to start applying this in your life if you think this is an area that you fall short on. Number one, I think it's overly important to walk in with the attitude of well, I wear it on my wrist every day of I am second.
Yeah.
Okay. And not walking in, it comes down to, like Mark said, that servant attitude. So walking into your establishment, your household, your locker room with, how can I serve the individuals around me, but also having that leadership quality. Serving doesn't always mean being completely submissive, because if you're completely submissive, people aren't going to be held accountable, and as the leader, is your job to hold them accountable. But one thing that I extremely value, and it's something that we are slowly implementing it just with my entrepreneur endeavors in different areas. And I know I'm not the first to think of it. Others have done this, but it's on the topic of evaluations. And every organization and business that I know
constant evaluation
does evaluations. And Mark actually just said the word, guys, constant evaluations. Yeah. And that kind of brings me to my point of, you are always being evaluated.
Yeah.
And that's something that if you can walk in with that mindset, like Mark said, it not what I say, do what I do, or whatever.
Yeah. Well, people always go, the comment is do what I say, not what I do.
Okay, well, yeah. I'm actually going to flip it. I think it's also
do
important,
as I do, not as I say.
Exactly.
Yeah.
To obviously, everyone's heard lead by example. So constant evaluations, you're always evaluating your team, but something that I think that all of us could probably implement inside our workplace. I'm going to say this, ponder on it, think about it, but having those evaluations done in yourself. And Mark used a really good word earlier in the show of creating relationships. Obviously, this comes with relationships that you create with these individuals, but setting them aside and be like, hey, where can I be better? Or where have I fallen short? Or what have I done that you maybe don't like? Now, I'm not saying everything they're going to say. I mean, some of it's going to be like, well, it's too bad. That's just the way it is. What do you mean I have to show up 5 minutes early to my shift?
What doesn't mean every relationship's going to be right.
Right. It doesn't.
Yeah.
But I think if you are able to sit them aside and, again, show that humility and allow yourself to be vulnerable, all right, those are the times where you're able to grow as much. And if you give them the opportunity, because some individuals are introverted individuals where they might not want to share maybe what they think. But if you open up the door and said, hey, so-and-so, where can I be better?
Get comfortable being uncomfortable. I don't care.
Yes.
No, but I think this is what it comes down to. If you're asking yourself, okay, this is something I'm interested in, I don't know how to do it. Number one, there's so much educational material out there on how to do it. Number two, this is very simple. What is your focus and what is your perspective? Mm-hmm. The people that you're working with, you're working around, you're working beside, how do you view them?
Right. Yeah. Okay.
Are they numbers? Are they dollar signs? Do you view them as subordinates? How do you view them? Change your perspective and change your focus, and you can easily do that and train your mind and how you look upon these people. If you find yourself being the domineering individual who's very judgmental and you're holding people to a higher standard, change your viewpoint and change your outlook.
Yeah.
Because that's where it all starts.
Right.
Because if you can look at them as human beings and you can look at them with the understanding and you can look at them through a lens of grace,
Right.
then you can look at them and naturally humility comes with it. Because a lot of times you can say to yourself, I've been there.
Yeah.
I understand.
For sure.
I understand we have highs, we have lows. You also then will understand how to motivate them.
Yeah.
Because you know what motivates yourself.
For sure.
So I think that's the number one easiest way of doing it if you don't want to go and educate yourself is really check your focus and check your perspective on the people you're working with.
Mark, I think that's beautiful by changing your perspective. That's
Yeah.
so well said because oftentimes, guys, I think sometimes the best way to do it is to learn to be an active listener.
Yeah.
Most people are going to tell you something without saying it.
The best communicators are the best listeners.
Exactly. So it happens all the time. Again, in our house, or at least in the kitchen, our chef will say something, and being able to recognize, oh, you need X product material.
What are the words within the words?
Correct.
Yeah.
Being able to read through the lines.
Yeah.
So-
And I mean, it's the same way I know my wife and I, we approach each other. I mean, we approach each other through the lenses of each other. And that's how you're able to do it from a humility standpoint.
Right.
I mean, Heather to this day is still the worst apologizer in probably the history of the world. She self-admittedly will tell you that. But understanding that, I can go into her with an amount of grace, knowing that. And knowing that sometimes my leadership role is to humbly approach her, even when chances it may not be my position,
Yeah.
but I know that's what she needs. I know that I'm going to help her with that gateway into that. And it's not for me, it's for her, so she can heal. Forgiveness is usually not for the person receiving it, it's for the person giving it.
For sure.
So it's just a way to look at it. I mean, think about your perspective and your focus, and yeah, I think you'll see some better results.
Yeah. No, that's good stuff. Yeah, I mean, we all can be better leaders. It's an area that we can all work on. And
And it's
guys,
a topic we could talk on 1,000 times.
And guys,
mean,
I really don't think this is going to be the last time that you hear about leadership. And I encourage, if you guys enjoyed this talk, if you guys enjoyed this topic, reach out to us, guys. If there's
Yeah.
another area, I mean, Mark and I, we're not know-it-alls, but
I know very little.
we all, I mean, we both have been. We have our experiences like we all do, and we'd just love to bring you guys a different angle or perspective. But moving, again, gonna lighten things up a little bit, my brother. I think we come back to our would you rather's.
Yeah.
I received about 8 different would you rather's from individuals
Nice.
via Instagram. Unfortunately, about 5 of them were probably way too inappropriate.
That's the problem I keep running. It's every single one that like someone brings to me. I'm like, "Mm."
Yeah, so we appreciate you guys reaching out with some of those. Let's call it PG-13 because I think I got like rated X. Is that even a thing anymore? I was like, you said what with your what? So, but I do have a would you rather, and it's definitely not sexual or gross in any facet of this, but it's kind of interesting. It made me at least pause and think.
So funny.
And think about the whole spectrum of this question, brother. Would you rather only eat food that someone else has chewed, or would you rather only eat raw food?
That is so tough.
You got to survive out here. It's
Uh,
hard out here in the streets.
Who's
boy.
chewing the food?
Ooh, okay, good question. Not your wife.
Dang it.
Someone. For you, it's a male. It's a male. A male is chewing.
I'm
your
eating
food.
raw food.
Raw
I'm
food,
taking
huh?
raw food.
Okay.
You know why?
You're
Because
gonna
I know
be-
there are people that actually live on that diet.
Yeah,
I've
like
read that.
vegan and
Yeah,
like
they
it's
actually do that.
basically just going. You're going to be a vegan. So I would probably have to go with raw food too. Now, I don't know if my wife was chewing it. I don't know. I might be into it, but yeah. So I think that's gross. Regardless, do you have a would you rather?
Yeah, did we do the jail one?
No, I don't think we did.
Well, a lot of the ones that I always get sent are very inappropriate. My kids offer the very inappropriate ones. I can't say that.
Come on, I raised you better.
Yeah, no kidding. They just find them funny.
Yeah.
I think sometimes they just want to hear me say it, which I'm not going to. It's like playing Cards of Humanity with your grandma. Would you rather go to jail for a year, or would you rather lose a year off your life?
Ooh. Would I rather go to jail for a year?
Or would you rather
lose?
take a year off your life?
Any specifics on what might happen in jail, or it's just kind of a
No, it's
free-for-all?
jail. It's free for all.
jail.
It's the normal experience. Soap on a rope.
Bro, I'm going to jail for a year, bro.
I said the same thing.
Heck yeah.
Do you know why?
What?
I was like, I think I could do something cool with that.
Yeah. Seriously, yeah. I mean,
I actually think of a very close friend. I'm not going to name any names. Went to jail, and it's actually really, really helped his message.
yeah, I was going to say, like, you could come out with some sweet books.
Yeah.
You could talk about it on the pod. It would be such a great time, like a year worth of just like educating yourself. Like I'd be telling the jail guards, like, yo, bring me that rack of books. I'm gonna read them all.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't know. I've always wanted to kill someone, so if I'm gonna do it, I'm gonna do it in jail.
I think you'd be there for more than a year, though.
Do they still get in trouble if you're already in jail? Probably.
Yeah.
I'm kidding.
You can't just go to jail and kill somebody.
I thought that was like, hey, you're already in jail.
No.
It's like
That's like
forget
a
it.
whole nother trial and everything.
You're right. I'm kidding.
You can obviously tell never been to jail over here. So
Yeah. No, I mean.
no, I think
yeah.
honestly, I think it's one of those deals like you're probably not going to enjoy it while you're there,
Yeah.
but I honestly think it can have a positive outcome.
Yeah, I mean, it's all how you look at it, bro.
Yeah.
Perspective. And I've always wanted a tat. So what better than a freaking prison, some ink, bro?
Yeah, that and Hep C. It's
Yeah,
great.
they
Yeah,
got
who
it
doesn't want
all.
Hep C?
They got it all. Oh, that's too good. Good one.
Good.
So yeah, what are your guys' would you rathers? Would you rather
Send us ones we can say online or say on the podcast. Yeah.
No. That's good stuff.
Yeah. It can't be too derogatory. And if it is, it's got to be like hidden.
Yeah, because there's a few that I'm contemplating on that we got sent, and I'm like, how can I at least tweak this to make it a little bit more appropriate?
Yeah. How can we twerk that to make it a little more
Twerk.
appropriate?
Speaking
Yeah.
of that, I'm going to have to twerk out soon.
Hey, I'm going to close with you guys on this topic. A good leader leads from above. A great leader leads from within. Okay, that's from MD Arnold. He's a scientist /
Good leader
author.
leads from above, a great leader leads from within. I
Yeah.
like that.
Don't be a good leader, be a great leader.
Good stuff, guys. Well, again, Delivery Link, guys, we appreciate you all. The feedback has been, very positive. We thank you for that, although we do know we fall short in a lot of categories, guys. But we appreciate you all just staying with us and growing with us. The platform is growing. We get more and more listeners. If you are a listener, guys, do us a huge favor and hit that subscribe button, okay? Don't be a podcast whore. Hit that subscribe button. Show us some love. That way we know that you guys are loving our content and we can keep bringing you guys more fire. And we're eventually going to, like we've said, we got some guests lined up. Josh is busy right now for the Arnold Classic season that's right around the corner. So
Absolutely.
but we're going to
If
get
you
that
are
rock
going to
and
the
roll.
Arnold, check out Visionary Meals. Have a concession stand there
That's
this
right.
year. So, yeah.
Come grab a meal from us.
Yep.
So, okay, guys. Well, we appreciate it. Keep being those leaders that we're all called to be, and have a good one.